it's Mike, aka Sanaku from Overground, and welcome back to the channel. So, a new set has just dropped, BT5, the Battle of Omnimon. Well, Battle of Omni specifically, but there's like a million Omnimons in the set, so we can basically call it that. Anywho, if you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome. If you're not, well, you must know that every time a new set drops, we introduce what's called the Rainbow Series. Well, this is episode 1 of that exact series for BT5. In the Rainbow Series, we always build one deck of every color based on our initial box openings. These decks are based on either our favorite Digimon, our favorite strategies, or favorite archetypes, and they're always kind of initial first drafts just to kind of put out there based on what we're able to open now before we kind of get into trades or future product openings. And it's just to get our feet wet, to get familiarized with these strategies, so that way we can start testing with them, start tweaking them into a competitive environment. But everything you see before you here is kind of an initial first knee-jerk reaction based on everything that we've read and what we theorize should work together, but hasn't necessarily been completely tested. And throughout the course of the format after the Rainbow Series, we will usually tweak these decks, and sometimes we'll post updates to them as the channel, as well. And if you follow me around on any of the tournament runs that I do on a regular basis, sometimes you can see me actually playing these decks. But today for episode 1, we're looking at the color purple, and we're looking at the purple ChaosGallantmon. ChaosGallantmon is a brand new Digimon introduced in BT5, and he is a house. He is a 12 cost to play, 4 cost to Digivolve, and his effect is that on Digivolution, we can destroy one of our Digimon to destroy one of our opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. And once per turn, whenever one of our Digimon is deleted, we can actually resurrect a level 3 Digimon without paying its cost. And also, no on-play effects will ever activate, but I mean, that's par for the course with most of the purple cards at this point as well. But what the cool thing about ChaosGallantmon, unlike something like with Chimeramon, which does something similar, is that ChaosGallantmon will always provide you a constant stream of resources, because every single time one of your Digimon would be deleted once per turn, you get to replace that Digimon. So, while purple was always kind of known for that low-to-the-ground rookie rush strategy that just kind of had a reanimator side strategy to bring everything back in the early days, that's what this kind of reminds me of, because you're constantly throwing these small Digimon at your opponent while constantly being able to recoup those resources for free without necessarily having to invest anything further and potentially get blown out by any of your opponent's power cards. And the even cooler thing about the strategy is that since it is the Battle of Omni, and because the Omnimons have cometh and they have invaded the game thus far, we have a brand new Omnimon suite, which we will cover throughout the course of the video. And this is a suite that Purple didn't necessarily have access to until right now. The level 7s for Purple were very paltry, pretty much Millenniumon or bust at that point, because they didn't have access to any of the blue or red Omnis. They didn't have access to Alter S. They didn't have access to Rhino Lordmon. They didn't have access to any of the Chaosmons. So level 7s were a very hard to find luxury in Purple, and now they're just kind of coming in by the bucket load, and they're very, very powerful, so it's very hard to ignore or deny them. So let's go ahead and get into the card by card, and as we kind of go through the deck, we'll kind of explain why certain cards are here and how this ChaosGallantmon strategy kind of comes together and weaves together through the card choices that you see here. Now, a lot of the cards you'll see on the table as well, they're not necessarily new. There are a lot of purple mainstays that have pretty much stood the test of time as we go from format to format. However, the cards that we will point out are cards that are just so powerful that they deserve to be included in not only this deck in general, but probably in a lot of purple decks moving forward. Now, again, I'm not a purple master. If you want to talk to one, you can talk to Joe Dobby. I've said this many times before, but the man just knows his purple. Again, this is just based on my initial theory and my initial knee-jerk reaction to reading all the cards, as well as some minor research in terms of what the Japanese meta looked like. But I'm very happy with how this deck turned out, and I have been able to play a couple games with it, not thoroughly tested out, but in the games that I have played, the results have been quite nice. So, card by card, our babies were playing 4 Demi-Meramon and 1Geomon. This is pretty much the exact same baby lineup that we had coming out of BT4, so nothing really has changed there. Demi-Meramon is here just for the consistency piece, because every time one of our Digimon is destroyed, we have to cycle through our deck, and Geomon gives one of our Digimon retaliation once we can hit that 10 or more threshold. And the more we get down this list, you'll realize how important retaliation actually is, especially when it comes to very specific combo sequences. Now, in our rookies, you're going to see a brand new addition in the form of Guilmon. This is Guilmon's first foray into purple, so welcome. And Guilmon, as we know, is one of my favorite Digimon. Gallantmon in general is one of my favorite Digimon, and that's what drew me to build this deck in the first place. It's Gallantmon, just a little bit more sinister. And Guilmon, his effect text is a little bit obstructed here, because I've tried to make the layout a little bit different for how I usually present my decks, just in order to fit everything on screen. But I'll walk everyone through what everything does. Guilmon's effect is that if it's destroyed by card effect, I actually get to gain 1 memory. And now you'll immediately start to see where the synergy is with ChaosGallantmon, because on evolution, we can destroy our Guilmon, destroy one of our opponent's level 5 or less Digimon, and then recoup 1 memory back with Guilmon's effect, and then, oop, our Guilmon comes right back for free. 3 with ChaosGallantmon's effect in order for us to reap that effect even further continuously if we have more opportunities to destroy him by card effect. Now, what's important to note here is that Guilmon will only trigger if it's destroyed by card effect, period. So just like ramming it into security and having it destroyed that way, or having it destroyed by your opponent hitting it back on the back crack, that won't trigger. It's not like the Tsukaimon Inheritable, for example. It's only through effect deletion specifically, but we do play that en masse. Next up, we're playing for Tamers. Tamers is pretty much the best rookie in purple as far as I'm concerned. On deletion, you get to draw one. It's just great, and especially since we have so much cycling and so much ability to constantly keep our rookies coming back. You thought Night Raid was bad going into 1.0 format. Now we got Night Raid on steroids on legs. So we can constantly keep bringing back these resources back that'll just continue to cycle through our deck and provide us with a consistent flow of powerful cards. And then we have 4 copies of Omnimon. Now, Omnimon doesn't have any effects, but he is a 2-drop, and that is very important in terms of accelerating our plays and getting bodies on the board very quickly. This also helps us put bodies on the board to delete with effects later on without having to pass the turn to our opponent when we do play these rookies. And finally, we're playing 1 copy of Gazimon. Because we have so many ways to recur level 3s back onto the board, Gazimon is important because in niche situations where we're going up against a deck that has a lot of memory manipulation, we can bring up the Gazimon and stick it to make sure that we can keep our opponent in check. Next, we're going to go on to our champion lineup. And now, this champion lineup is pretty much all old cards. The only new card that you probably haven't seen before is the 1-cost starter deck Devimon, but we did feature that in our Metal Garurumon promo deck for BT4. Other than that, he's there for protection because he's a blocker and a 1-cost evolution. We're going to follow that up with 3 copies of Meramon. This is the 5-cost to hard play and 1 cost to evolve. This is just for some speed to help us get some bodies on board and evolve up if we're in situations where we brick, or just in situations where we need to control the memory on our opponent's side. We've also got 2 copies of Devimon with Retaliation and 2 copies of Ilemon to have additional blockers in the deck if we go up against heavier rush strategies. Then moving on to the ultimates, so one of the brand new additions we have is the new Black War Growlmon. And I'll just move these out of the way so you can kind of get a better look at them. So Black War Growlmon has a Digiburst 3 ability, which is probably the highest Digiburst cost we've seen so far on something that's a non-mega. And its effect reads, when you Digiburst 3, you can play 1 level 3 purple Digimon from your trash without paying its memory cost, and of course, all on-play effects are negated. But what sets this apart as well is that it has a very powerful inheritable, and that is when attacking, once per turn, you can delete one of your other Digimon to unsuspend this Digimon. And this is not dissimilar to the the purple Weregurumon, my apologies, that we played back in our old original purple Metal Gurumon deck. And this deck shares very similar beats with the original purple Metal Gurumon deck that we put out a little while ago, where it kind of shares similar themes in the sense of that we're using our mega level 6 top end to just kind of bring out rookies to delete and eat them up later for free advantage. And having the ability to evolve into a Black War Growlmon in raising, move it up, and then immediately give you another free rookie in play to evolve into a ChaosGallantmon right over top, and then you delete that rookie immediately that you just got back for free, and then you can delete another one of your opponent's Digimon, is very, very, very strong. A cool thing to note with Black War Growlmon's Digiburst as well is that if you have nothing in the trash pile and you detach a rookie as part of the 3 Digiburst, you can target the rookie that you just detached. So ideally, if we just want to go through that combo that I just discussed, ideally you would always want to have a Guilmon in trash so you can bring that back. So that way, when you do go into the ChaosGallantmon, you're technically only evolving the ChaosGallantmon for 3 because you're going to get 1 memory back off of the deletion effect with the Guilmon. And that helps because in a deck where you're generally starting your turn at 3 memory, this enables you to go through your combos without having your turn be forced to end. And that's kind of the theme that they're doing with a lot of Gallantmon cards. They're always making them cost 4 and giving them very powerful effects. So now we're in a situation where we can mitigate that memory cost in order to help us reap those powerful effects, but not necessarily pass the turn over to our opponent. And then rounding off our ultimates, we're playing 2 copies of Chimeramon because the ability to constantly delete our opponent's stuff is very powerful and it's worth including in the deck, and 2 copies of Meramon just to have that extra speed and consistency once again. Now, moving into our mega lineup, we are playing 4 copies of ChaosGallantmon himself because he is the heart and soul of the deck, and we want to make sure that we see him as often as possible. We're complementing him with 2 copies of Anubismon, which is another way to revive rookies, and he also has another very powerful effect in which anything that is brought back from the trash while he is in play gains rush. And you'll see as we go through the remainder of the deck that there are other cards that we play that bring cards back from the trash that aren't always going to be level 3s. So we have a lot of cool potential here to revive bigger Digimon with Rush through Anubismon. And our last copy, level 6, is 1 copy of Megidramon. And Megidramon pretty much acts as the 5th copy of ChaosGallantmon, because his effect is that when Digivolving, both players mill 5. So if you're in a situation where you don't have any real engine going and you don't have anything in trash to kind of start chugging your deck along to start bringing things back or interacting with through your opponent's current board state, Digimon helps you set your grave up a little bit faster. Furthermore, on deletion, if we have a Tamer in play, we can play a level 6 Digimon with Gallantmon in its name from our hand or trash for free without paying its memory cost. So that's why I'm saying it's kind of a fifth copy of Gallantmon, because if one of our Gallantmons is in the trash, whether it was sent there, through our security stack, or it was destroyed earlier on in the game, or it was something that we ended up milling through other card effects, we can basically revive it for free. And while we don't get the on Digivolve effect, it gives us a body in play to further our combos as we go into our level 7 suite. And that's why I think that Megidramon, while I'm not 100% sold on its inclusion in the deck, the theory behind it is very strong. So I still have to play around with this a little bit more to see if it's worth keeping, but I do definitely like the idea of it. So we touted around the talk about having a level 7 suite for purple. Well, enter the new Omnimons. So we have Omnimon Zwart and Omnimon Zwart Defeat. So Omnimon Zwart, if you're unfamiliar, when Digivolving, it costs 6 on black and purple, not dissimilar to our standard Omnimons of the past for red and blue. We mill the top 3 cards of our deck. Then we can play up to 2 black and or purple Digimon with play costs that equal 8 or less from our trash without paying our memory costs. Now, that's not 8 combined, which I originally thought when I read this card. It's 8 each. So if I have 2 copies of War Growlmon, I can bring them both back because their individual play costs need to equal 8 or less. So as we talked about with the Anubismon, anything that we bring back into the trash has a rush while it's face up on the field. So if we have another stack that we can turn into an Omnimon, guess what? Our entire deck at level 5 or below, we can revive through Omnimon Zwart and give them the rush ability with Anubismon. But even if we don't have Anubismon, this enables us to bring back stuff like multiple blockers, multiple level 5s that we can evolve into level 6s immediately. The idea of bringing back a Chimeramon and a Rookie, so that way we can immediately destroy the other card that we brought out beside Chimeramon to take out one of our opponent's Digimon. The utility is endless. This is basically a much more narrowed in version of Piedmon, because instead of having to pay the hard 12 to pay it, we're paying half the cost to digivolve it, and we're getting more value out of it because we can get anything higher than level 4 as well. And it has another effect as well that reads, when attacking, we can return 1 level 6 Digimon and its sources to our hand to delete one of our opponent's unsuspended Digimon with a play cost of 12 or less. So the unsuspended theme continues here, something like Trump Sword we had back in 1.0 days. And play cost of 12 or less is generally anything that's going to be a level 6. So you can return your level 6 in source to destroy one of your opponent's megas or below. So we're constantly kind of keeping our opponent in check by taking away their resources and dealing with their stacks as they're building up towards their final endgames. And we're constantly using our resources to make sure that they can't get to what their final goal is, but we can constantly keep a stream of resources on our end to keep our game plan a-chugging, and we can keep presenting lethal to our opponent turn after turn after turn. And finally, we have the new Zwart Defeat. Now, Zwart Defeat costs 3 to evolve over level 6. However, it's a little bit weaker, but it has a cool catch. So, if it's checked in your security, it doesn't perform a battle against the Digimon that's attacking it. So normally when a Digimon would attack, you compare the DPs, and if the DP of the Digimon in security is higher, you would destroy the attacking Digimon. In this case, that does not happen. However, similarly to the security Digimon that we introduced in 1.5, Zwart will automatically pop itself out into play for free if it's checked in the security. So that's very powerful because it gives us an immediate 13,000 body that will combo with another card we're about to talk about in a second. But the reason we're playing Zwart primarily is because it has 2 very powerful effects. The first of all is that when digivolving, we can delete one of our opponent's Tamers. This is the first instance of a card directly interacting with our opponent's Tamers in the game. And the other card that can interact with Tamers in this set is the green Argomon that keeps our opponent's Tamers suspended. Well, keeping opponent's Tamers suspended isn't necessarily that relevant this format. However, the ability to completely destroy them, that can be. Because that, especially when you're playing against decks like that have hybrids in them, for example, blue and red, you can delete that Davis, you can delete that Marcus, you can delete that Ty, so that way they can no longer evolve into a hybrid over that Tamer to get that game shot. If your opponent's going to go to 3 guaranteed, but you have a play in which you have the ability to choke them and you can still go into Zwart Defeat, you can destroy that memory setting Tamer and then proceed to choke them afterwards, and they don't have a way to come back into that game. More powerful Tamers are constantly being introduced into the game with every new set, and BT5 is no exception. We have a lot of the powerful dual Tamers now. Joe and Sora specifically are going to see a ton of play in a lot of blue decks, and the ability for Zwart to just completely turn that off means that you no longer have to worry about actively playing around that. Even the Tamer that we play ourselves, Matt and Ty, Zwart can delete that on the opponent's side, which will help us play around that card. And the second effect is that on its deletion, we can delete one of our opponent's Digimon, no restrictions, nothing, just like Gaia Force. It can be suspended, unsuspended, any DP, any play cost, doesn't matter. If its Zwart defeat goes down, it takes something down with it. Which is why the discussion of retaliation was very important, because at 13,000, there are some Digimon in the game that could be bigger than it on your opponent's side of the field. So what we could do is that we could swing into it with retaliation, have Zwart be destroyed, the retaliation will take out the opponent's big Digimon that we ran into, and then on top of that, Zwart can take out another Digimon as well. So this is not dissimilar to something like Kentorosmon back in 1.0, where you would run Kentorosmon into something and crash, and then you would take something else down with it. However, in this case, you don't have to play those DP manipulation games. You can literally just get a free 2-for-1 with Zwart if the opportunity to come up with retaliation is present. However, there's also the potential of just having Zwart defeat die when you're attacking into your opponent's security, and if it does die off a security check, well, guess what? You're getting extra value, because it's going to take something down to the digital grave with it. And to complement our Omnimon package, we're playing a brand new suite of white options and white Tamers. So speaking of dual Tamers, here is Ty and Matt. They're on the same card together because, they're best friends and best rivals. And unlike standard memory Tamers that would set us to a specific number, what Ty and Matt do instead is that if our opponent has a level 6 or higher Digimon in play at the start of our turn, we just get 2 memory for free. And during our turn, any of our Digimon with Omnimon in their name gain security attack +1. And that's why we're playing the 5 Omnimon to the 3 Ty and Matt ratio, because this allows us to always maintain that when we get our big Omnimons into play, that they will always do that 2 security check. And with Zwart defeat specifically, if we have a Ty and Matt already in play, and our opponent checks Zwart defeat on our security, we just get a free double swing attacker that just comes into play at literally 0 cost. And speaking of 0 cost, here's Mega Digimon Fusion. So it costs 0 to play, and it's basically the white hidden potential discovered. And it reads, the next time one of your Digimon digivolves from a level 6 to level 7 this turn, you can reduce the memory cost of that digivolution by 6. And at the end of the turn, you can return the Digimon that digivolved by this effect to the bottom of the deck, and you trash all digivolution cards. So what this allows you to do is that you can potentially go into Zwart for free, and then still get that mill 3 from Zwart, and then get 2 more bodies on the field. So even if you're getting Zwart put to the bottom of the deck at the end of the turn, it doesn't matter, because you've already gotten your free value out of it. You've already gotten more bodies on board to compensate for that. And 9 times out of 10, when you go into your level 7, you're generally going for the game shot anyway. And again, if we have something with retaliation underneath, it doesn't matter if we're running the potential to have our Omnimon return to the bottom of the deck at the end of the turn, because we're just going to suicide it into something that our opponent has in order to take it down with retaliation. With this entire white suite, there is an argument to replace Zwart defeat or play Millenniumon in some capacity, because it is a 6 cost to evolve normally, and with Mega Digimon Fusion we can reduce the cost of Millenniumon to 0 as well to get free removal. Now, you'd still have to put it down to the bottom of the deck at the end of the turn. But what's cool with Millenniumon is that, especially with stuff like ChaosGallantmon and Chimeramon, you can go into Millenniumon, get the removal, and then play one of your cards that destroy one of your Digimon to get more advantage. Destroy the Millenniumon because it would have sources because you've evolved over top of it. And then you would be able to just bring the Millennium back, and now it's no longer under the effect of Mega Digimon Fusion to return to the bottom of the deck as well. So I've been kind of going back and forth to whether or not I want to play Zwart Defeat or Millenniumon, or just plain Zwart, or include Millenniumon in some capacity. I do believe there is an argument for it. However, as it stands right now, I believe Zwart Defeat is better just to add more consistency to our Matt and Ties. And speaking of Matt and Ties, there are other white Tamers you can play in order to give yourself access to activate Mega Digimon Fusion. And these are Takumi and Nokia. Now, Takumi doesn't necessarily gel well with the overall strategy of this deck, because Takumi reads that all level 3 Digimon when attacking lose 1 memory. And because we are attacking with a lot of our smaller Digimon that we keep bringing back off of all of our revival effects, it could be counterproductive. Nokia does not offer a lot of synergy to this deck at all right now. If they were better Gabumons in purple, I believe Nokia would have some weight, because then you could play, because Nokia lets you play an Agumon or a Gabumon from your hand for free, but none of our purple Gabumons right now have any on-play effects to really generate any advantage. They're all inheritables. And Nokia also lets you reduce the cost of any Greymons, Garurumons, or Omnimons by 1 for every copy that you have in play. So there is an argument to potentially play Nokia, because she's a little bit cheaper as a 3 versus 4 than Matt and Ty, and you can kind of turbo your Omnimons out a little bit more. I'm just kind of offering alternatives, just because there are different pathways and different schools of thought when it comes to this deck. And finally, the last card in the deck is just 1 lone copy of the regular purple Manashita. 1, because we want the ability to recur cards back, since we are doing a lot of milling and sending cards from deck to trash. And second of all, it's just a little thematic, because Matt himself has always been a bit of a loner, so he gets to play the 1 copy of himself as a loner, even though he gets to hang out with his buddy Ty over here. So yeah, that is going to be our first deck for the Rainbow Series, and that's going to be Purple ChaosGallantmon. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm on the right track? Do you think that there's some cards that I need to change already? If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. We love hearing your thoughts, and we love interacting with the community. So look forward to the next episode of the Rainbow Series. I believe episode 2 is going to be Red. So look forward to that, guys. Thanks so much for walking. Thanks so much for watching. And if you like what we do here at the Overground, please consider subscribing. We're trying to reach our next milestone of 500 subscribers. And if you can help us get there, thank you very much. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you all in the next one.